Hello and welcome to part 4 of our 5-part video series looking at how to create this cordial bottle design. In this video we're going to be doing 3 different things. So firstly we'll be looking at how to create this label and apply it to the bottle using the decal tool up here. Secondly then what we'll do is look at using SVG files in order to create indents in flat surfaces, so embossing designs into a surface like I've done here. And then finally we're going to go a little bit more advanced and we're going to look at how you can do the same thing but then into a curved surface like we've done here on the rear of the design. All right, let's go. So as I said, we're going to be doing this in 2 stages. So we'll look first of all at the easier option, which is to create a label design and stick it onto the bottle. The second thing we're going to look at is a bit more involved. It's looking at SVG files and using those to create an image that we can use to emboss into the surface using this tool here. Where is it? The emboss tool. So this will apply to curved surfaces. We can use it then to cut in or to bring out that shape, so embossing and debossing. But before we can do that, the first thing we have to do is create the logos we're going to use. So if I go to this is the program I've been using, Inkscape, which is free and is really good. But you could use anything like Publisher or Microsoft Word, or even, if I go to the internet, you can use one of these, where is it? Free logo makers. Oh, we're already on the right page. So one of these free logo makers online is really good. But if you use one of these, or if you're using Word or PowerPoint or something like that, what you might need to do in order to be able to save it as an image, you might need to use the snipping tool, save that image, and then you're good to go. But luckily for me, using Inkscape, where is it? Using Inkscape, I can use the export function, and I can export just the selection here, just to make sure that I've got none of this in the background, just to create my image. So if I go to my files, where are we? So videos, pictures, there you go. So I've exported this already in preparation for this, so you can see I've just got this with no background. Right then, so with that saved, what we do is we come into Fusion and we go to the decal tool, click on this, and it's going to ask us to choose the image we want to use. Now, if you're using the online version of Fusion, I don't think this appears, insert from my computer. So what you might need to do is use, let's go out of this a second, you might need to go to the data panel, and you might need to upload an image into your project. So upload it, and then you've got it there to use. All right. But what I can do, let's get rid of this, is just go to insert decal, insert from my computer, and go to, where's my pictures? There, and in here, and select this. There we go. So it's going to ask me now, what face do I want to put this on? Well, I want to put on this face. And there you go, it's on there. Now I've got a number of options. I can change the angle, I can change the position, and these 3, this one, and this one, allow me to change the size. Now I always use the corner one because I've designed it the right shape. What I don't really want to be doing is this and stretching things out of kilter. So I'm going to make that 1, so it's right. And I can scale this now. For the purpose of this, I'm going to make this label vertical on the bottle and shrink it down slightly and position that just there. Right, there you go. I'm happy with that. Now, you may notice that it displays slightly strangely. So depending on what angle you're looking at, you might have a situation like this where it looks like it's not really showing and you can see the textures underneath. That's not a problem. When we do the renders later on, this will actually look fine. But to get an idea of what it's going to look like, just play around with the rotation so you can see it showing properly, because this will be closer to what it will look like in the final render. So I'm happy with that. That is the simple way of doing things. You could, at this point, move on to the next video if you wanted to. This will create really nice results when we do the renders. That's absolutely fine. Or what you can do is stick around and I'll show you how we can do the embossing onto the bottle over here. So like I showed you earlier on, I've created already my logos, and for this, what I need to do is create something called an SVG file, which is a scalable vector graphic. So if I show you in Fusion, it's got the option under Insert to insert an SVG. To get an SVG, there's a couple of things we need to do, potentially. If you've got a program like Photoshop or Inkscape like I have, you might be able to export directly as an SVG straight from here. If not, though, what you can do is save an image and use one of the online conversion tools to turn this into an SVG. Now, this works better if you've got a black and white image because the edges are easier for the software to pick up. If you've got something like this, maybe it'll work. It should work, but you may find that you end up with multiple shapes when you only want one. So, for example, these letters here, because they change color as they go across, what you may find is the background here will be one shape, but in the SVG, you may actually end up with the letters being made up of several shapes stuck together, which won't be a problem, but it may mean that your file that you create has so many different shapes in it that it becomes quite laggy, which is a problem I had a minute ago. So this is like the 5th time I've recorded this video, but I think I found a website that works pretty good now. So I've saved this as an image, and what I've done is I've come across to the internet and I've searched for free SVG converters. This was the one I was using earlier on, which didn't give me very good results. This one here I've used before, and this is the one I'm using now. And hopefully this one will work a little bit better. But you've got options in these websites very often to change the level of detail that it's picking up. So I could go to great, but actually I want the edges to be kept really simple if I can. So I've gone with strong rather than great. And you can play around with these settings here, the different options, in order to create your SVG. So this is a preview of what it's going to create. Now, what I'm looking for when I'm looking at this is, have I got nice clean edges to these shapes, or have I got lots of little tiny bits of shapes off the side where maybe it's picked up odd pixels around the edge or whatever. This seems to have worked pretty well. So what I'm going to do is go download SVG. What's it called? It's called that. Let's open the file. Okay, looks lovely. Now I'm going to go into Fusion and I'm going to insert that SVG from my downloads. Where are we? So there's the file. Open. And you'll be able to tell whether this is a file that's suitable, because if not, this will be really laggy. When you put things in and you try to move them about like this, what I was finding earlier when I was using a different website was this was really glitchy and laggy, and it was because these edges had so much detail and so many sort of tiny little shapes that we didn't need that it slowed down the program. So once you've got it in, let's just have a look before I do anything else. Where's the front of the bottle? So there's the front of the bottle. So this is upside down in terms of where I want it. So let's just center the view on the top again. So the first thing I'm going to do is rotate the view 90 degrees, or 180 degrees rather. And like we did before, move it about with these tools. I don't need to explain this because I've just shown you how to do this. Shrink it down and just play around with it until it's in a position that you're happy with. So I'm going to obviously be cutting this into the top of the bowl. So I'm going to want it about there. Right, I'm happy with that. Let's go OK. And what you may have noticed already, if I just zoom in, give it a second to catch up. There we go. So what you may have noticed, it's got several lines on these edges. So this was the black line that made up the edge of the shape. So when I'm doing this next bit, I'll just need to be careful to select the bits that I'm actually looking to cut into this design. So finish the sketch, and I'm looking for the emboss tool. Right, so it's asking me for profiles and faces. So the profiles are going to be, what shapes do I want to use to cut with? And the faces is asking me, well, what face do I want to cut into? All right, so the profiles, this is going to take me a few minutes probably, but I'm going to want that, that. So I'm picking the inside and the outside because I want it to just cut out as a single shape. And like I was saying earlier, this is why it's so important to find a converter, like the one I used online, that cleans up these edges for you. And I know some bits aren't perfect, but that's the result of it sort of doing a best fit when it's trying to work out where the edges are. But for the sake of this, I think this will look fine. So I'm happy with that selection. Where do I want to cut it? I want to cut it into that face, please. And now it's giving me the options for what I can do. So let's just change the angle slightly. So what it's doing at the moment is it's bringing it out by 2 millimeters. That might look nice. I could make this out of metal. Obviously, I'm probably not going to want it that far out. Oops. Let's say I make this 0.5 millimeters. See what that looks like. So I could have it sticking out of the surface by 0.5 millimeters. I could make that out of maybe the same bronzy material. Let's just go OK to see what that looks like. So we'll give that a second just to sort itself out. There we go. So at the moment, it's in the MDF texture that we used before, but we can change that later on if we want to. But that looks quite nice. So I could leave that. Or let's go to the timeline. Let's right-click on the emboss and edit that feature. So rather than having it sticking out by 0.5 millimeters, what if we instead put a minus here and have it actually cutting in by 0.5 millimeters and go OK. Let's see what this looks like. There we are. So that's actually cut into the surface, which I think looks a little bit better, a little bit more realistic maybe. But obviously the choice is up to you. Now what you can do at this stage as well is I can right-click on this and go to Appearance, or I can find the body under here. Which body was it? Was it Body 2, I think? So I can right-click on Body 2 and go Appearance. And this will bring my Appearance toolbar up again, like we had before. And what I can do then is I can see here the different materials I've already got in my design. Well, the one I've got here is the bronze, so I can use that same bronze and drop it into those shapes. Now, what's important, and I would have mentioned this in a previous tutorial if you've been following the series through, is that if I select faces, it will only apply to the faces that I drop it onto, rather than covering the entire body with the same texture, which I don't want to do because obviously I've applied all the other textures to it and I want to keep those. So just drag and drop this into those different shapes, and there we go. So let's hide this. I'll show you what it looks like close up. Sorry, my one's flickering. There we go. So if I zoom in, click off the side, you can see what that looks like. It's embossed into the surface, and I've laid bronze into the base of the recesses. Now, when I render this, this will look quite nice. So let's just zoom out to see the overall effect. That looks quite nice, and it'll look really nice when it's rendered as well, especially if I sort of take a view from the end and render a view like this. You'll be able to see all the detail in it, and it will look fancy. So the final thing I want to show you in this tutorial is how to actually cut the logo we've just done into the lid into the rear of the bottle. The first thing we need to do in order to do this is make a plane over here that we can put our SVG image on and project it from there to emboss into the bottle. I'll show you what I mean. So under the construct options, we've got a offset plane tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the front plane, which is this one, and we're going to drag it to create a new plane off the rear of the design. And the reason for that is if we put the SVG image on this plane, we wouldn't then be able to cut into this rear surface. It would be trying to cut into the inside of the bottle. All right. So it doesn't matter how far you put this off the back, as long as you've dragged it far enough that it misses the design and the SVG will be off the rear of the design. And you can see it there now. There's the plane ready to go. And over here on the left-hand side under construction, it's created plane 3, and we can turn that on and off as we want. Right then, so we're going to go insert as before. We're going to insert the SVG, insert from computer, there it is, open, and we're going to drop it onto this plane that we just created, like so. Just be careful if you're in a position like this. Just be careful that it's put the logo the right way up. I had a problem earlier where it was the wrong way up, but what you can do is once you're happy with this, you can flip it. Let's see, let's just double check on the lid. So yes, I think that is the right way up at the moment, but it's back to front. So let's shift this into position, focusing on the rear of the design. And what's important at this stage is to make sure that this thing, make sure this thing is actually going to fit within the edges of the design. Otherwise, obviously, as it's cutting into the bottle, this may stretch further. Well, it probably won't be a problem, but it might stretch further around the design than you want it to. But for it to look like you see here, when you look at it from the back, you'll need to make sure it fits onto the design like this. And like I say, it's not a problem because if it's bigger, it just means that it'll wrap around the design more, but that might not be what you're looking for. So I'm going to put that there, and see these icons here. I've got flip horizontal and flip vertical. So I've just flipped that horizontally to make sure my C is, I don't know if you can see that properly from here, but I flipped it to make sure my C is the right way around because it wasn't when it brought it in. So let's go OK. I'm happy with that now. The C is the right way up and the right way around. And there we are. So let's look from the back again. Am I happy with this? Yes, I am. So I'm going to go finish sketch. And here's where it's been a little finicky for me, is when I use the emboss tool here. So it will complain at you if you've got tangent chains selected. So what you'll need to do, in fact, I'll show you what it says if I do this the wrong way. So it says sketch profiles. What do I want to emboss into here? Well, I want to emboss those. What you may want to do, rather than clicking and dragging over these, you may want to select individual bits. Let's say, for example, you wanted these outer bits to be cut into the bottle, but not this. You could unselect these parts inside here, but I do want them to cut in, so I'm going to leave those selected. And where do I want them to be cut? I want them to be embossed into this face. So watch what happens. If I click on here, it will probably complain. There we go. So one error, selected faces are not connected. If disconnected faces are automatically selected, uncheck tangent chain, then select adjacent faces. So where I was having a problem earlier was I was unticking tangent chain, like it told me to, and then it still wasn't working. That's because what I need to do is, once I've unticked the tangent chain, I'm going to untick the face as well, and then reselect the face, which just makes it understand you better. There we go. So now it's showing what it's about to do. So 0.5 millimeters it's going to cut into that face. Am I happy with that? It looks like it's going all the way through, which is not what I want. Well, let's just have a look at what it does. Let's go OK and just see, because I think this bottle is 4.5 millimeters thick, so theoretically it shouldn't cut all the way through. But we'll just let it catch up. It might be that it's just displaying it strangely. Yeah, it was. So as you can see now, what have I done? Oh, it's actually sticking out of the face, is it? Yeah, I think I've got it sticking out of the face rather than being cut into the face. But that's fine. That might be what you want. That looks actually quite good as a texture on the surface. You can't really see it properly because I haven't applied a texture to it. But that's currently sticking out. But if you don't want that, what you can always do, come down here to the timeline, edit the feature. Let's wait for this to load. There we go. So rather than being, there we go. Rather than being embossed, which means to be stuck out, let's go deboss, which will flip it the other way around and cut it into the surface. There we go. And you can tell it's a cut this time because it's gone red. Now, I probably should have spotted that before. So red means it's cutting, blue means it's adding it. So let's go OK. And let's see what this looks like. There we are. So that's what I intended originally. Now, you can leave that as it is. That will look really nice when we do the renderings of this. Or what you can do is the same as we did on the lid. There we go. Up on the lid here, which is to actually lay a different texture into that. I might do that just to show you what it looks like. So if you imagine that there's like a bronze foil or something in that, oops, hello. If we imagine there's like a bronze foil in those recesses, let's get these bodies, where are we? So it's body number 1 is the bottle. So let's go to appearance and I'll show you what that looks like. There we go. So again, bronze polished is already in my textures that are in this design, and I want to make sure I'm selecting faces this time again, and I can drag. Let me just make sure I've got nothing selected over here. There we go. Where's it gone? So let's try that again. So appearance and faces, and because it's very see-through, it's quite difficult to see what you're doing here. So this is quite fiddly, but you can, there you go. You can start dragging the texture into those debossed recesses, like so. So not only have you got a texture on the back of the design, but you've also got a different material inside those recesses. And obviously you can play around with this and do what you want with it. I didn't do this in the tutorial, but what I was originally thinking was I could maybe take this lettering that I created and actually emboss that or deboss that into the bottle. But you can play around with that if you want to. So this is where I've got to. I've got the logo debossed into the rear of the design, and we've now got as well, obviously, the same thing in the lid. So I think that's where we'll leave it for this one. Obviously, there's a lot here to be playing around with. You've got the decals you can apply. Maybe you could apply something around the neck as well. We've got the embossing and debossing into a flat surface we've covered, and we've got obviously this one on the rear. So there's 3 different techniques there to be playing around with. The first one's really easy, the second one's slightly more difficult, and this one on the back is a little fiddly. But if you follow the steps in this tutorial, you should be okay. All right, in the next one, we're going to be looking at renders, so I will see you there.